Chapter 10 of J.P. Moreland's book, Love Your God with All Your Mind, is titled Recapturing the Intelligent Life in the Church. The guidelines for the video this week say, Moreland suggests a number of practical applications for local churches. For this assignment, discuss the strengths and weaknesses of Moreland's ideas while developing your own thoughts on how to improve the health of the church by renewing a commitment to the life of the mind. More generally, do you agree with Moreland's thesis regarding the current state of the church? And do you feel that his proposed solutions are plausible and biblical? Okay, first, in the practical suggestions section of the chapter, it talks about sermons. And he says that our current situation is that we kind of view sermons as a gas up or a fill up station. So like on Sunday, we've been worked out from the whole week of dealing with life and problems and everything. And so we go to church to get our fill up. And then we don't really, do we fill up the rest of the week, or we just get that one fill up that day? That's kind of the point that I was getting there from it. So basically he's saying that people don't learn anymore. They're just being told what to believe. I happen to agree with that. He also says that people want to learn, and I agree with that. His strong point is that this is a real observation that I do believe in and support. And however, the weak point is that many people in congregations are not ready for such a systematic approach to their relationship with God, specifically in congregations like ones here in the South, I think, because their older people don't really respond well to new or prepackaged ideas. That's kind of my take on things. I believe, or like to believe, it's because they already feel like they have a personal relationship with God, and I can't judge that. So they probably do have one. But their minds are just kind of closed to the idea of there being any other way that other than what they've done. So like their idea is it works for me, so if it worked for me, it should work for you. And so when it comes to like detailed notes and stuff like that, like he says in the sermons, they're not so willing to jump on that train. I think that if we took the time to remind them that they too want to learn just like everybody else, and then we'll have a better impact on these situations versus just starting new trendy ways of doing things, and they're kind of foreign to those people. And I'm not saying that old people are just against stuff like that. I'm just saying that elders in the congregation have had a way that they do things for a while, and it seems to work for them. So what I'm saying kind of, I guess, is if we put into perspective for them how these things can help the younger members of the congregation, they may be willing more so to try it out. Because if they think they're trying to help somebody, which they would be, then I feel like it would be a much more systematic approach to implementing these things. I think one way that something like this could really be accomplished is by first implementing the idea into use in like Sunday school or the specialized courses like he lists in the book. I think that's a great idea. The way I see society as a whole, we've become a culture who doesn't really like to be told what to do. So I think that a good way to get people interested in being more intellectual in their approach to church is by giving them options on how they learn and what they learn. If the preacher says we're going to be studying 1 Kings, and then there's somebody in the congregation that thinks they already know everything there is to know about 1 Kings, then they may not come back that night or to that time frame, that class. Or if somebody is just like, I'm not very interested in that Old Testament book, or so I'm not going to come back. So I think that's two things, or that's one way that we could possibly change it up a little bit and get people more involved, is if we give them an option and let them have a choice. And then so it's kind of ironic, we're giving them 4 or 5 areas to study something, and it's paradoxical if you really think about it. You give them options in order to show them that there's only one truth, through belief. And true belief, I think, can honestly only be attained by having an intellectual affirmation that you believe what you've read because you've studied it and you found it to be true. I feel that it could benefit everyone to have a choice of classes at church. We all need to exercise our minds. This approach would then deepen the value of the mind across the congregation, so they all quest for knowledge, which will subsequently also cause the congregation to be more susceptible to the structure change of sermons, which would be like what he introduced as far as like detailed notes, outlines, and things of that nature. Some of the other ideas that he mentioned on page 230 are testimonies, celebrating intellectuals, or pitching a message to the upper 1/3 of the congregation, which makes perfect sense to me. And I'm not saying that I think that there's a lot of stupid people in church. I'm just saying that there are some people that are able to grasp a more broader range of knowledge, and then there's some that you have to center in on. And I think like it's like a meat sermon. You give somebody a meat sermon once every month, and then you kind of got the milk sermons the rest of the time. So that way everybody, and there's a balance reached, so nobody gets bored or nobody gets overstimulated, if that makes sense. I think that his solutions that he proposed are definitely plausible. I've seen it in my own church. It's being implemented through a series of classes right now. We have 4 or 5 options, and for the most part, everybody that's a member of our church is at church at one of those classes every Sunday night. There are still a few that fell off to the wayside, and that's going to happen. And are they biblical? Absolutely, they're biblical. The function of the church was listed, and what we're supposed to be doing, and the form he says can be changed. If I'm looking back on it correctly, it says it right here that. Sorry about that. The function is an absolute biblical mandate that every church must do. For example, edify believers, worship God, evangelize the lost, and so forth. Functions are unchanging non-negotiables. So as long as our function or what we're trying to do, our mission is to edify believers, worship God, evangelize the lost, and we're doing that, it doesn't matter how we're doing it, as long as it is truthful, honest, and it's an approach that works. Thank you.